Welcome back to Queer Next, the show about being queer in Central Appalachia. I am your host, Dash,
I am your other host, Beck.
and we are joining you from what will be the last day of Pride Month, 2025. I've been calling this the year of oh Lord, because it just fucking keeps coming, and not in that fun way.
We just put our flag out like 2 days ago. We were kind of late to the party.
Really,
Yeah.
I don't
We
have
have
a
a little
flag.
we have a little well, we have a little patio and my wife keeps a little different, she changes it with the seasons. I meant to buy her a porch goose for Christmas, but I ended up somehow buying a porch duck. So we have a porch duck that we dress up in little outfits.
How large is this duck?
Well, I mean, the size of a small dog. It's still wearing its scarf right now. We have a tie for it coming, and some sunglasses coming from Amazon soon. Do you know about the Portuguese? There's on Facebook. There's a group for the Portuguese of America, and all the old ladies post their Portuguese and
No.
all that. You can buy outfits for them on Amazon. It's a whole little cottage industry.
So I had a feeling I was missing an important piece of information,
Yeah.
and it apparently is a culture of.
Like, have you ever drove by and somebody had an outfit on a goose sitting on their porch?
I don't know. I mean, it's
You should pay
likely.
attention because you'll see it. It's out there. When I lived over by the high school in BG, there was a lady that changed it. She had rain boots for it. She had a slicker for it. She had a St. Patrick's Day outfit for it. She had 4th of July. Like, whatever the season is, they put different outfits on them. We're
Okay,
not that crazy. We're not that crazy yet. Give us time.
I'm gonna Google Portuguese. Wow, there's a little Santa Claus.
People come
Eh.
up with really funny names for him. Like somebody put it in a Reds uniform, and the hottest player with the Reds right now is a guy named Ellie De La Cruz, and they named it Ellie De La Goose.
Did real geese ever come up and be like, "What the fuck"?
I don't think so, not that I know of, because they're mean.
Yeah. Oh boy, they got some geese here. Just
Yeah, we've got 2 ponds on the property where we're living right now, and there's constantly geese and things like that because we're pretty close to Canada.
yeah, you're almost as well. Technically, I think we're at the same latitude. Is that what it is? The one, yeah. But we are further from the border than you because the border isn't level.
Yeah, we're under the jurisdiction of Border Patrol here.
Dang. We aren't in any jurisdiction here. I ain't never seen a cop. I see sheriffs going around, but I've never seen anything that said police, except for
Wow.
on campus.
Wow. We have a cop that drives around our parking lot like 8 times a day. You constantly see him out there just doing rounds.
Well, what's the weather like there?
It was sunny and beautiful this morning, and then it rained, like thunderstormed for a couple of hours, and now it's like 72 degrees and blue skies. But it's been hot, 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 hot the last few days.
We had a heat advisory out here,
Yeah.
which it was hot, but it was not like what these folks think is hot is not hot. And I've been trying to like figure out why here does it reach 95 degrees and they send out a heat advisory, but it'll be 115 in Kentucky.
It's the same reason that when it snows in Texas, nobody knows how to drive. You know what I mean? You get to 40 degrees in Texas and they all think it's a
Yeah.
blizzard, you know?
And maybe they just are not used to being safe in conditions like that.
Somebody asked me a question the other day. Would you prefer 32 degrees or this 107 bullshit? Which would you prefer? And I said at 32 degrees, that's still t-shirt weather where I live.
Yeah.
Negative 47. Which would you take? Negative 47 or 107? Like, which is worse? I would take the 107.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely would take 100 degrees is totally doable. Just, around that you're right, like 32 degrees, that's still, I might put on a hoodie.
Yeah.
But if like cold, like it gets here, yeah, I would much rather it be hot, humid, glasses steam up, the air, you have to chew it before you can get it down your lungs. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have that than anything below 0.
Yeah. If it would say 72 and sunny all year, I'm a California weather kind of girl. That would be ideal for me.
That's because you're California sober.
A lot of people have told me that I should end up in California.
I've considered it.
Yeah. So who knows what the future holds.
I've been thinking about this idea or this kind of reality of, I guess, diaspora in the U.S. now because we are so politically both divided and then also Some folks are just heavily impacted by things that are happening now and need to relocate. And what that's going to do to, if you have an identity that is tied to region or location or something like that, that's going to fuck with you. Cause I have felt pretty fucked with moving out here because it has felt like, it's not that I didn't make the decision to do it, but it did feel like my hand was forced to find a place where I would be able to get medical care as a trans person and
Right.
be able to depend on or at least bank on this state being one of the last holdouts for civil rights for trans people. So, for instance, living in Kentucky, the workplace protections for transgender people were taken away. And so that meant that like anybody could fire me and say it's because you're transgender. Like we just do not like that you are transgender. And
you can do that being gay in Ohio and being transgender. You can be fired for any reason. It's an at-will state.
You can sue, though, if they fire you for being gay. If they fire you for what they call a protected identity, they can still do it, but you can sue for discrimination because discrimination is still illegal.
My wife has been fired 3 different times because she was gay.
She needs to sue them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got fired from Pizza Hut for changing my gender presentation. Didn't say anything about, I was simply just identifying as queer at the time. I had just graduated and I had cut my hair off and I had been a server. And like I said, I was really good at it. That's the only reason I worked there. It's like the only way to make money at a place like Pizza Hut is as a server and to be fucking incredible at it. So they said, no, you can't serve tables anymore. This is a family institution. So places will do it, not just assuming that we won't sue because most of the time we don't. And I think a lot of places also don't realize that sexuality is a protected class at the federal level. But it took an executive order that Biden signed in 2021 to make gender identity one of the protected classes in Title VII. And so for 3 years, transgender people had the same discrimination protections as other protected classes. So that went away. And because it had appeared and then disappeared, everybody was laser focused on it. They were firing trans people left and fucking right. And then they outlawed my job. And so I was like, I just had to make a very quick exit. And I have friends here, and I'm very fortunate to have all of these things. But I am so homesick. And like on the way home, I was thinking like, God, I want to go home. I don't even really like home that much. But like, I'm in the family group chat. My parents are still alive, and I'm out here. What's going to happen to my brain if something happens to them and I'm stuck out here? It just feels like I'm flirting with disaster in that way.
Yeah, I understand that. I also feel homesick, but in a different way. My home no longer exists. The people of my family no longer exist. All I have left, I started with 19 aunts and uncles, and that was before you counted spouses. Those were the brothers and sisters of my parents, 19 of them. So I had over 40 cousins, and there was always a lot of family left. And I've got a lot of cousins left, but a lot of them are Trumpers and we're just not very close. I've got my dad's half sister, and then I've got my mom's full sister, and they both live several hours away. Aunt Jenny is too old to drive anymore, and my other aunt, she can't see very well.
I have an Aunt Jenny too.
Yeah, it's short for Genevieve.
I don't know what mine's short for, actually.
I had a Genevieve and a Geneva in my family. Genevieve was my great-grandmother's name as well. A lot of fun old names.
I know. I love the old names and stuff. I love hearing like people talking about the old names in my family.
McGoffin County, Kentucky, I probably said this already, did my family tree, right? Mm-hmm. So I took it to show my sister. We were at a baseball game, right? And so we sat around and laughed at some of the names. One of my favorite, there was America, Texas Reisner. And then there was the family name, the first name Skid. Mm-hmm. And we laughed so hard because my dad's name was Mark, and we said we should name it Skid Mark.
Wow, those are.
I have my like 7 times great grandfather was Archibald.
Mm. A lot of the like escaped slaves and servants, they would just pick names out of the Bible.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of real religious names in my family, like churchy first names and then made up last name like Smith. But there were some though that would just sound like almost like onomatopoeia. Right? There was this one guy named Clem. I actually have several Uncle Clems. My papa had a twin brother named Wirt and had 2 Granny Iones.
My grandmother, her name was Osie Cordelia. And my grandfather, the 2 of them, I had Virgil with no middle name, Virgil. And Arlene was my mamaw, Virgil and Arlene. There's several Christines in my family, but I will win this game because I've got a cousin named Bebo. Um, there is Merle and Cliff, and then there's my grandmother Arlene, there's Marlene, there's Tharlene, there's Eileen, there's Starlene, there's Annaline, etc. Every kind of lean you can think of. Did I tell you that my mom was in the same book twice?
Yeah, because she was her own cousin. No,
Yeah,
because she married.
My dads were cousins.
Yeah,
my dads were cousins. I've only got 9 stories, so I'll tell you those repeatedly.
It's just like what Trixie and Katya do on their show. So my mom's mom was Opal, and her middle name was Columbia because she was first generation. So she was Scotch Irish. When they named their kids, they would try to be all like, "We love America," and so they named her after Columbus. So she had and she I couldn't understand a word she said. Like, our dialect was strong, but hers was so different to ours. She was trying to speak English, but she had diabetes and she had neuropathy in her tongue. And so she slurred her words. And so I was like, I never knew what the hell she was saying.
Oh, that's so scary.
She was also like, I don't know, she was kind of cool. Like, she would just appear with food and you wouldn't know why or what she was doing, but she would just be there with food.
Right.
And Papa would, translate, but he was tongue-tied. Because tongue-tie runs in my family. I'm tongue-tied too. So his tongue didn't even reach his teeth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he would he also had a real weird way of talking. I think that's one reason why my mom she was obsessed with elocution. Like, she was obsessed with learning correct grammar, with learning the correct way to speak.
Not in my family.
Both of my parents actually, I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to pick up code switching, even though it was so late in life, because both of my parents they were communicators. My dad actually was a radio DJ. There was a radio station for a while in Jellicoe, and that's what he wanted to go into. Like, he would be so thrilled to know that I was doing this, or to know that this was even something that people do. He probably doesn't know about podcasting.
You said doo-doo?
Yeah, I did, yeah. But no, they both were they were invested in communicating, I guess, to the best of their abilities and modeling that for us. And I definitely benefited from that. Because the rest of my home dialect is so fucking strong, you would not be able to understand it.
My grandparents had very thick accents, and they still used a lot of old language, like calling a bag a poke and things like that. Sometimes they would have to translate for me.
Do you know what it means when if you say he kindly favors him?
He looks like him?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I wrote my master's thesis, people were so confused by the first sentence because I used the word bucolic, and that apparently was too highbrow for several people. God bless him, my biological father. The only book that man ever read cover to cover was the Walmart guy, Sam Walton, his autobiography. Because he wanted to be a billionaire, I guess. But God love him, he read my thesis cover to cover and called and asked me questions. My mom didn't care at all about any of that shit.
Yeah. I think my mom and my sister read my thesis, but my thesis wasn't particularly good.
Well, mine either, because my advisor didn't advise.
Yeah.
But it was still interesting. It was local history to Southern Ohio,
Yeah, mine was all high theory, and it was clunky, but it was a topic that I was really passionate about, and it actually is the reason I went into the program we were in instead of continuing to do English, because it was a cultural studies approach. I don't think my mom liked it much. So my mom was very politically reactive after David was killed in Iraq, and had some really regressive opinions about people who were not Americans, probably about people of color, even if she didn't dare tell me.
How's she doing with the news right now?
I think that you mean with Iran?
Yeah.
We just don't talk about it, but she is upset. I know that, and she's just so fucking angry at Trump. She wants it to only be Trump's fault. She doesn't want it to be the level of fuckery that it actually is, right? She doesn't want it to be systemic, because she doesn't want it to be a problem that could stick around and ruin the lives of her grandkids. And so we'll kind of just let her do that and say, God damn it, this fucking Trump, if it hadn't been for him, this or that. Because what does it matter if some 70-something-year-old hilljack fully comprehends the political landscape that brought this populist monster to where he is? She's going to do her part. She's going to vote to oppose him and people like him until the day she dies. She doesn't need to do any more work than that, in my opinion.
Yeah. My dad had started going down the alt-right highway a bit there in the last year of his life. And it was scary to see it happening so fast to
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
I thought was so smart. You know, I always looked up to him because I thought he was so smart and so reasonable.
I was reading some of my research today was about social identity development in relation to mediation, mass mediation in particular. And I read this theory called third person effect. And it is essentially that most people believe that everybody else is more susceptible to manipulation by mass mediation than they themselves are. And how that manifests is we reserve our sharpest criticality, our sharpest criticisms and lens for people other than ourselves, instead of starting with examining our own reactions to mediation or selection. Media selection is already biased because we seek out whatever it is that is going to, it's called uses and gratifications theory. For the most part, we seek out things that will give us gratification. We're not seeking out things that disagree with us. And I think people want to reduce that to, oh, you just want to be an echo chamber. It's a lot more complicated than that. A person's self-esteem is at stake. Their identity is at stake. Having the reserves, get the emotional labor to give to constant critical evaluation of your own lens. And we're talking about folks who are already running full tilt 24/7 trying to feed themselves. And it's not that I don't think they can do it. Of course they can do it.
For sure.
Oh my God, we're just preaching the word today. Maybe we should spin this here wheel of what have you. I had to make a new one, listeners, because the last app crashed, and so I don't know how this one works. Let's see. Spinny, spinny, spin. Lord. Can you guess what we landed on, Beck?
Jail?
Jail. Goodness gracious. A hallowed Central Appalachian institution.
Yeah, I've never been to jail unless it was to pick up my brother or for the Girl Scouts. I've never been, knock on wood. Thank the Lord. But I don't drink, so I don't drink and drive or do any kind of that kind of stuff. You know?
Ain't it funny how drinking is it'll send you to jail quicker than anything?
Yeah, that's what got my brother. My brother told me a story about one time he was in front of the judge. He had resisting arrest was one of the charges that he had, and he was like, "Judge, I swear this time I didn't resist." And the judge said, "But the other 143 times you did." He had been arrested over 140 times for drunken disorderly, those kinds of things.
I'm turning over a new leaf. I didn't swing this time.
Yeah, my brother, whew, I would hate to know how much he drank in his 31 years. He started drinking when he was 10 years old.
For fun. We took corn liquor medicinally because they may have had cough medicine and stuff. They probably did have cough medicine at the time, but, not in Jellicoe. And so we would get Whorehound rock candy and spoonful of corn whiskey.
I did not like Whorehound, but I don't like licorice. I don't like any of that kind of that flavor. I don't like root beer.
Yeah, well, and we've already covered that I have been to jail. But I think in the scheme of things, I should have gone more often.
There's also the fact that I grew up in a town with a prison, with a pretty serious prison.
Mm-hmm.
They had the death row there for many years. I think they finally moved it back to Columbus a few years ago, but we had death row there. And so the worst criminals, it was like the prison within the prison system. Mm-hmm. Right? If you got in trouble, you went to Lucasville. A lot of my friends' dads were guards or the warden even. There was the prison riot that happened there in 93. Something like one guard died and I think 13 prisoners ended up dying. It was the longest prison riot in American history, in modern American history.
Do they know what caused it?
It was over the treatment from the guards, they said. And that was one of the unusual things because the black prisoners and the white prisoners banded together and overtook the guards. And that's kind of how it happened. On Netflix, there's a show called Captive, and it's the first episode. They do different places there were captives.
Cool.
Things. Yeah, so if you're ever interested in learning more about the Lucasville prison riots, there was a lot of footage I had never seen before. But everybody I knew was on CNN that week. There's only so many people in Lucasville,
Suddenly y'all was famous as hell.
Every media outlet in the world was there. They were lining the streets, and we were moving into a new high school, and the high school was literally across the street. Well, it was more of a road, but across the road from the high school, they were like you could look out in English class and look across the street and see it. And it was something eerie about knowing all those rifles and all those secluded people. Like, what would have happened if one of them did get out? They had two schools, the elementary school and the high school right in front of them. They would have had hostages galore.
I never went to jail in Jellicoe. I never went to jail until I went to college, but they called it the Madison Radisson. They killed people in there. Like, people have died in there just from the treatment, from the neglect, and it was like, I was only in for a total. It wasn't 2 weeks total both times, but it was enough for me to be like, no, fuck this shit. There's also different kinds of jail. There's jail, there's population, which is a different kind of jail. That's like jail squared. And then there's prison. And then there's releases. So there's, for instance, like community service, a half a dozen ways to be caught in this system. And you can also be somebody who just gets shifted around between them. But when I was in jail both times, I was in the exact same room.
Oh, wow.
You can't get put in population until you've been arraigned. And I hadn't even been charged yet. So, because they arrested me, and I don't think they actually never did charge me with anything the first time, but they just kept me for 2 days. And so they had to figure out where to put me, and they put me in the drunk tank. They just left me there. And the drunk tank is all genders, and they just threw fucking hammered men over the weekend in there. I don't know why, but it is mostly dudes who get violent DUIs,
Right.
or at least there.
Right.
And so it was like, there was one other person in there who was assigned female at birth, and we were just like huddled together in the corner, and it actually looks kind of like a swimming pool, because they have to be able to hose it out, and there's drains in the floor, and they give you these mats that are kind of waterproof. They're kind of water resistant, and you put them on the floor, and that's what you sleep on. No blanket. I was on my period. They wouldn't let me have menstrual supplies, and I was like, why? I had them with me, and they took them away, and they're like, you could injure yourself or someone with them. And I was like, have you never seen these before? Can I walk you through something real quick? Do you have a minute? They're like, nope, just deal with it. So it's like an increasingly dehumanizing situation that just materialized out of nobody giving a fuck. They didn't even have to try. They didn't even have to put effort into decreasing my safety by the hour. That's one of the scariest things to me about like carceral institutions, that when they are functioning as they're intended to, people suffer the most, because they are just perpetual motion punishment machines.
The entire prison industrial complex it's all designed to do that. They're not making money unless they have people in beds. You know what I mean?
And of course, it is well documented that the prison industrial complex is simply a replacement for slavery.
Oh, yeah. It's written right into the Constitution.
Yeah, right. Like, we'll get rid of slaves unless you can convince somebody that they did a crime and then put them to work in exchange for committing the crime.
I teach this every semester, and my students are just blown away that prison labor is still a thing. I'm like, have you ever enjoyed, I don't know, Victoria's Secret, McDonald's French fries? So many things that are made with prison
recycling. The recycling lobby, in a lot of states, that shit is simply just pre-sorted garbage on its way to a landfill that has to be run through prison labor first. And they do it so that they can get that, what is it, the rebate, that green energy grant.
What does it say about me that my two main exes are both cops now? They were not cops when I dated them. I would like to point that out.
I don't know if it says anything about you.
One of them is a prison warden.
Oh, damn.
And one of them is a sergeant in the sheriff's department in Kentucky.
I mean, ACAB and fuck ice and all that, but like a woman in uniform, there's still something to that, even if the uniform is representative of something fucked.
Right. They were both bullies, though. They were both big, tall, strong bullies.
That makes sense. If it says anything about you, it just says that you have a thing for tall drinks of water that like to push you around.
But then I married the opposite of that. You know what I mean?
Oh, did they?
Anna's about the same height as I am. We're about the same size. And she is not pushy or bullying at all.
Yeah.
And we've been together for 21 years now. So.
Could you imagine Shanna as like a prison warden?
No, I genuinely can't.
She would just get everybody high and then open the doors.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen. She'd be the one coming up with like the prison like recipes, and she'd be cooking for everybody.
Dang.
She'd make everything nice too. She'd decorate the cells and all kinds of girl shit.
I think jail, or just, like we said, that carceral system is so American.
We have the highest number of people in prison anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we treat it like a business.
It is a business. It is American capitalism to the core. You will maybe know the day when we are finally beginning to take liberation and a person's right to pursue any kind of actual happiness seriously, when we begin to dismantle the prison industrial complex. Until then, we're lying through our teeth about whether we actually care about that.
Yeah.
And where you'll find that shit is the places nobody looks, like the South, like Black communities, like those isolated areas in Central Appalachia.
Why do you think there's so many prisons in Ohio in small little towns all over the place? Because the towns benefit economically from those, and so do the politicians. And they make hand over fist, they make so much money, and it's all violence. Some of the people that I know now that were like my age that are prison guards, I'm thinking of one guy in particular. He got picked on and bullied and all that kind of stuff in high school, and now he's a prison guard.
Yeah.
He also has like 8 kids, which I find really weird. I guess he proved he was a man.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how people like that turn the other cheek in a way, to the angry side.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a good chunk of the people I went to school with are dead. The rest are fucking cops or sheriff or something. And I'm like, I knew you back then. What is this? There's an adorable dog waving at me, listeners. She has one snaggletooth.
It's all she's got left. That, and you can see that's on the other side. She's got this tooth here, and then on the other side, she has one on the top.
She's embarrassed. Look at her. She's saying, stop pointing out my teeth.
She's an old lady. She's a perfect baby.
Did anybody besides your brother, are there any like fantastic tales of reasons people went to jail? Not just the general fuckery.
Well, I've got plenty of cousins that were in jail for like marijuana grows and things like that. And I had a cousin that did some pretty heinous assault type things. Not proud to know him. I know like 7 people who have been murdered in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an excessive number. A lot of people are like, I've never known anyone. I'm like, I literally know like 7 people that have been murdered. Both my mom's best friend and my dad's best friend got murdered when I was a kid. One by the guy by his wife and the girl by her stepson.
There is an inordinate amount of murder and also just crazy accidents in hill-jack places. Mm-hmm. My coworkers sometimes can't believe the stories I've got.
Yeah.
It was a really large tornado in North Dakota, and it tore a town apart. It's real rough, and it killed 3 folks, and they're going through it out here and I've learned that things like that don't happen here. Like, they're not constantly inundated with life-ending weather events here, and I find that interesting, because I was like, oh my god, yeah, all the tornadoes I've been in, and they're like, you've been in tornadoes? And I was like, yeah, I'm from Kentucky. Look about the fact that like North Carolina, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky are underwater. Once a year, something floods so bad that a whole ass highway needs to be replaced.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think there's something a little mythical about people from where we're from to folks who haven't been or lived in a place where the whole world is actually out to get you. Like, the weather is trying to wipe you off the side of this mountain.
Right. Or if not that, the overgrowth of the weeds. That was something that I had to deal with when I moved back to my mom's. We had 17 acres, and I was responsible for the grass cutting of that to keep the snakes back and stuff like that. And the very first estimate, guess how much they wanted to charge me to mow the lawn? The first person I called to ask. $2,500 American dollars. I literally said American dollars.
Somebody tried to get me with some shit like that when I bought my place in Kentucky. They quoted me $5,900, and I said, no, this is 2 fucking acres. Mm-hmm. But it's sideways. Okay, whatever. I'll turn sideways and mow it then. I don't care.
Yeah, I ended up getting somebody to mow it, one of my dad's friends, and it cost me a car trailer. Mm. But I got it done. Yeah, I am not built for home ownership, because Lord knows I rarely ever have $5,000 sitting around to replace a heating unit or something,
I never can tell if anything's any good. Just growing up in trailers and whatnot, like, yeah. I don't have an eye for whether something is quality.
Right. All right, gang, this segment of Queer Next is brought to you by The Porch. Not a porch, Not your porch. We're talking about the porch. Capital T, capital P. The unofficial town hall, the runway, the therapist's office, and the weather station of Appalachia. In these parts, the porch isn't just a place to sit, it's a sacred space. It's where life's biggest announcements are made. Things like engagements, pregnancies, divorce, who got whooped, and who finally got their four-wheeler out the creek. It's also where you pretend you didn't hear any of that while snapping beans with Mammal. For queer folks like me, the porch is versatile. It's a social place and a hideout. It's a stage for big confessions and a perfect escape hatch when Cousin Dale starts talking politics again. I've come out on a porch. I've made out on a porch. I've smoked on many porches. I've ghosted people from a porch without ever standing up. It's multi-purpose. Some of the year-round gay features include summer sweating with a sweet tea and existential dread, fall brooding in flannel while judging everyone's pumpkin decor, that's especially for the lesbians, springtime azalea surveillance with light gossip on the breeze, and winter, well, it's mostly frozen but still emotionally available. So whether you're having a moment, avoiding one, or just need to sit somewhere that knows too much, try the porch. It's not just lumber, it's a legacy. A queer Appalachian classic with seating for whomever you're becoming. Side effects may include mild euphoria, unsolicited neighborly advice, and knowing exactly when it's going to rain without checking your phone. Big thanks to the porch for keeping us grounded and slightly elevated with a good cross breeze. Now, back to the show.
How about that? Was your porch painted Haint blue? Do you know what that is?
No, mine was black.
You know what Haint blue is?
I do. They paint the ceiling. Yeah, yeah. I know people who had those ceilings, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I guess we should say what Haint blue is. In Appalachia, in the hills, there are things called haints. They're not ghosts, but they're kind of like ghosts. It probably used to be haunt, and we just said haint, but there are beings that can come and get you if you're not careful. They're usually riding around on the night air. If you go out on the night air, a haint might get you.
My mom was so weary of the night air.
The night air, yeah, it's cursed. It'll get you.
I got the chicken pox the summer of my high school graduation. Like 6 weeks after graduation, I came down with the chicken pox. And like 2 weeks in, all I wanted to do was leave my house and go mail a letter. Just drive to the post office and put a letter in a box. That's all I wanted to do. And my mom made me put a whole towel system around my face and like drive there like that. I took it off immediately as soon as I was out of the driveway. Night air. Ooh.
So it actually originated in South Carolina, Georgia. Tidewaters coming up from Virginia and South Carolina. Paint blue, if you paint, it's a pale blue color, and if you paint the ceiling of your porch this color, it'll keep the haints away. They can't cross over the threshold. So it's kind of like maybe like vampire rules. It's supposed to, because it looks like the water, they can't come across it because everybody knows haints can't cross water.
Have you ever seen a ghost? I saw 2 ghost horses.
That's cool.
So the area that I'm from, there's a lot of Native American history in those hills, specifically the Shawnee. One day I was going out to my car and from school, and I had to be at school at like 7:30 or whatever, so it was early, and I was 16. I had my driver's license, and I walked outside, and there were 2 horses playing. Like my house, like the lawn, there was hills to it, and they were kind of down on the flat spot down in front of the garage. And these 2 horses, they were both black, they both had reins, and they were just playing. And I was like, what the fuck? And I went in to get a camera, right? Because I knew nobody was going to believe me. And I came out and there was nothing. And I walked down there and it was soft earth. And it was early in the morning, so it was dewy. There would have been marks if there had been 2 stallions sitting there playing in that grass. Nothing.
That's
so
cool.
I got made fun of it. I told everybody. I told my friends at school, and I told my dad, and they made fun of me. Then it happened again a few weeks later. I walked out, and that time I ran in to get Mark, my dad, and when he came out, they were gone again. But twice I have seen black horses as ghosts. I would swear.
I don't know if I have seen any, but there are times when I feel something. And there have been extreme moments of just fear and terror and I have been in like the really old parts of the mountain we lived on, or it's all old. One of the things about Appalachia is it is the oldest part of this continent. It used to be Pangea. It used to be in India. It's the ocean floor from 240 million years ago. And there is just something kind of powerful, or something just emanates from it sometimes. There have been times when I have wondered if I saw creatures with people faces and stuff. I got lost. Me and my brother decided to go up the mountain one time and see the sunset, which is fucking stupid, but we were children because we didn't think about the fact that the sun would have set, hence coming down the mountain in the dark.
Right.
And so we realized this in a panic, and we just, it was one of the scariest moments, honestly, of living on that mountainside, and I saw all kind of shit. come out in that twilight, and he was terrified and I was terrified, and we basically just went up rolling down the hill. And we didn't even make it back to our trailer. We wound up in the quarry of the mine.
Oh, wow. So I don't know what happens when we die, right? I don't know where our soul goes. I don't know where that energy goes. That's one of the questions I have been dealing with in therapy. Where does all that energy go, you know? But when the day my mom died, my dad started acting pretty weird. He started cleaning out the closets because she died at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And by noon, he had her closets cleaned out and wanted us to take it to Goodwill and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to be there. So I drove back to Toledo by myself. It was 200 miles and I was completely by myself, and I was pretty emotionally disturbed. We'll say that. I basically screamed and cried all the way to Columbus, which was about 75 miles. And I pulled over and I made myself get some food, and I calmed myself down. I cried again. Then I calmed myself down again because I knew I had to go through Columbus. And so I turned on the radio, and the last thing my mom said to me before she went into unconsciousness, she said, "You're so pretty." And my mom never said that to me before in my entire existence. And the first song that came on was the Fugees' Pretty Baby, that song. And the next, all the way home, the music were songs that were between me and my mom. There's a song by a woman named Patty Loveless. I don't know if you remember her from the country.
Yeah.
There's a song she has about a mama dying and learning how to say goodbye. That song randomly came on the radio during that time. The first concert I ever went to was Vince Gill, and the Vince Gill version of I Will Always Love You came on. Vince Gill and Dolly Parton. The Boots with the Fur song came on, and that was a joke that my mom, she got it stuck in her head. Every song that came on had something to do with me and mom. And you will never convince me that she wasn't with me for that drive, because I don't even know how I made it home. So I truly believe her spirit was with me. I don't know what happens to you when you die, but I don't know.
There was this interview where, and I don't know the context of this, but it was, I think Stephen Colbert does this thing sometimes where he'll ask his guests randomly what happens after we die.
Yeah.
And it's resulted in a couple of fights. He got into it with Ricky Gervais, actually. But I just saw this clip of him. He asked Keanu Reeves, and he did that. He had that Keanu Reeves pause, and he said, "I think that the people who love us will miss us." And that just seemed like the perfect way to even think about what does it even matter what happens after we die? Because what it is someone who's lost something and someone. And like you said, you lost a person and a place.
I lost people.
Yeah.
I lost my biological father first in 21. I lost my mom in 22, and then I lost my adopted father in 23. And then in 21, I also lost my best friend from growing up. And in the middle of all that, I lost both of my cats that I had had for 13, 14 years.
Sometimes life gets to lifing, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then I had to give up my entire life and my job and go live where I never wanted to go back to, and teach at a university I never wanted to teach at. And it was a struggle, the whole thing. It was mentally, it put me in a dark place a couple of times, but I'm very thankful for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting in my mom's, I literally would sit on the couch, and it was positioned where her bed from hospice was. So I would sit at night in the exact spot where she died. Getting out of there did so much for my mental health. It took every resource, every trick, every dollar we had, man. But getting back into our regular lives. Do you know how many times I've had Chipotle since we've been back?
Well, speaking of places and people, it's time for this week's Nouns of Interest. And this week, actually, our noun of interest is a people, a thing, and a place all at once. Talking about that Hatfield-McCoy feud on the Tug Fork River along the border of Kentucky and West Virginia. So, listeners, it is probable that you have heard of this feud, and if you have heard of it, you likely also heard that it started over a pig. Like a lot of stories told about people who aren't permitted to tell their own stories, that yarn's been spun a bit. The truth of the matter is that the Tug Fork Valley wasn't some forgotten holler. It was a social, cultural, and economic crossroads. Before companies of outsider industry stripped the land bare, this valley was already soaked in the blood of 2 Indian removal acts, several wars, including the Civil War. The Hatfields lived on the Confederate Western Virginia side. The McCoys lived across the river in the Union side, Kentucky. The real origin of the feud was the murder of Asa McCoy shortly after being discharged from the 45th Kentucky Infantry. The Hatfields claimed that it was revenge for some unrelated grievance, but Asa himself had no part in that. The most likely reason was he was targeted for his Union allegiance. The violence escalated, the years wore on, shootings, house, barn burnings, kidnappings, floggings, public execution, and yes, pork-related chicanery, but the conflict didn't grow in a vacuum. It grew in the full view and with the prompting of the national press that was hungry for a distraction in a post-war America. You see, when Reconstruction failed, the country craved a different story. It especially wanted one bearing no criticism of white supremacy, federal abandonment, Jim Crow, or the myth of the lost cause of the Confederacy. So Northern press took this post-war Appalachian conflict and turned it into a parable of the insufficiency of Appalachians to steer their own destinies. The pig punchline enraptured national majority narratives of the region, erasing the political and economic context, constructing in their place a caricature of toothless hillbillies feuding for fun, too ignorant to know peace. The specter of caricature bloomed over Appalachia, seeming to justify its hills being plumbed for the resources to better the lives of others. You see, Appalachia was being sold off from under their feet. Coal operators, timber speculators, and railroad barons were flooding the region, buying up land from folks who couldn't read the deeds, forcing families off generational homesteads, building company towns where your wages, your rent, your food, and even the casket that carried you to the hereafter came from the same damn company. All of this was happening on top of the Tugfort River Valley and the Hatfields and McCoys. This wasn't just a family squabble. It was a region under siege by the same forces that would go on to trigger the Coal Wars. The same companies who'd hire the Baldwin Felts detectives to squash and break strikes and kill Union men. The same extractive economy that crushed labor and called it progress. Appalachians became a useful scapegoat for the majority capital W whiteness, which benefited greatly from an example to illustrate the wrong kind of whiteness. Poor, uneducated, violent, not like us, their suffering was politically convenient, proof that some people just couldn't be saved, and it let the rest of the country wash its hands of its own unfinished war. The Hatfields and McCoys weren't just feuding, they were surviving. In a skirmish like the Hatfield-McCoy feud, no one comes out clean. No one gets to be the hero. From 1890 to 1891, dozens of lives were claimed by the feud before the state governments had to step in and adjudicate. But the untold bits of the story, the context, can provide us a little hope. By the 20th century, Hatfields had become prominent figures in the Coal Wars, standing with the miners in one of the first integrated labor movements in the U.S. history. Sheriff Smile and Sid Hatfield, the hero of the Maidwan Massacre, was a member of the same Hatfield clan that seemed to fight with the McCoys to no end. And in a feat of pure camp, Hatfields and McCoys appeared on an episode of Family Feud in 1979. A dual family reunion was initiated in 2003 and an official truce declared in 2004. Since then, work on repairing the damage done by the feud to both the region and its people has continued, including more of the same grassroots organizing that won the Coal Wars, but this time in the spirit of healing. And unsurprisingly, it has been the work solely of the people of Appalachia to attempt to clean up a mess the whole nation happily helped to make.
Very interesting. I know my best friend is a McCoy. That's not her name, but her family is a McCoy. And I know someone who is related to Devilance Hatfield, one of the main players.
He's the one who started it all. He's the one, he sent the people to kill Asa McCoy.
My friend Marcella, he's a direct relative of hers.
Wow.
That area, the Tug Valley, that's, Big Sandy, that's kind of the Kentucky, West Virginia side. I'm from the Ohio side of that triangle. Yeah,
that region, I mean, that was where the economy happened in America at the time.
Yeah.
You remember last year, there was that sniper on I-75 down by London, Kentucky?
Yeah.
It was a McCoy that found the body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's the last day of Pride Month, so I don't know what to say about that, but that we're going to keep on keeping on and talking our little queer rambles in whatever fashion we see fit. Fuck Donald Trump.
Until they throw us into camps.
Yeah. And Shannon will smuggle us in something.
Yeah, we know we're all gender traitor bullshit academic. I'm going. There's no way I'm not going to the camps. So I'm everything they hate. DEI. I'm
Mm,
all of it.
yeah.
So I'll see you there.
Yeah. Well, we're just going to keep doing this and keep talking. And we hope that more people join us, and we hope that y'all talk too.
Yeah. Tell other people about us.
Yeah. Remember, follow us on Threads and Instagram at QueerNex. I also made a Facebook page that is only friends with drag queens, which is pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they just add me, and I'm like, hell yeah. But yeah, it's QueerNex also on Facebook. So come and find us, come and hang out, and we will see you next time in July, and we'll just still say that it's Pride Month.
Sounds good to me. It's always Pride Month in my house.
Fuck yeah. We'll say hi to your mom and them.
All right, bye.